Some movies are just made to be seen on the big screen. Now, such a statement might seem like blatant hyperbole of the highest order to some individuals within the modern day cinematic landscape. After all, the discussion towards this subject and topic has actually been intensified in recent weeks due to occurrences within the larger film industry, whether it's the debate as to theatrical windows shrinking as studios seek to put their properties on streaming sites as fast as possible, or even the discussion about Netflix acquiring Warner Brothers and what that would mean for the future of the theatrical box office landscape, especially because the CEO of the said company says there's actually no difference in watching a movie on a phone versus a movie theater. Not sure how that works. It remains to be seen where the majority of audience goers lie on this vast discussion spectrum. Some individuals, myself included, are movie theater truthers, devoted to seeing every specific release on the big screen no matter how far they have to go in the process, and championing the combined power of movie theaters to bring audiences together and unite them through a shared experience. Others, however, do not see the intrinsic value of the theatrical experience, and instead devote their time to waiting for these properties to inevitably drop on the myriad of streaming services at their disposal. You see, a specific facet of this discussion that has been raised in intensity within recent months is that ease of access has allowed the magic of the movie-going experience to slowly die. Take, for example, the slate of Netflix releases within the past few months. Netflix has started to put some of their major releases in theaters a few weeks before these said films drop on their streaming site, leading many diehard fans to go check them out to stay in the loop well ahead of the release. Yet, while many cinema aficionados appreciate this gesture and use it to the best of their ability, there are more than an abundance of cinema fans who are intent on waiting a few weeks for a property to be accessed within the comfort of their own home. It almost seems like audiences are being conditioned now more than ever that cinema is a disposable or lazy art form, and that the movie theater experience is not worth cherishing ultimately. And such a sentiment really pains me as a fan of filmmaking. From an early age, as young as I can remember, I fell in love with movie theaters. There is so much to appreciate inside of them and about the experience they withhold for audiences. The smell of the popcorn, the architecture, the anticipation building as you walk down the hallway to your auditorium, and the excitement as the lights begin to die down at the start of your show as you prepare to experience the feature presentation on the big screen. You see, a movie theater isn't just a location, it's an experience. It's a place where people come together to feel and relate to art itself. When you sit in the darkness of a movie theater taking a film with a crowd, there's a special sense of trust and assurance placed on behalf of the audience onto the filmmakers behind these movies. We are entrusting these filmmakers with our time and effort in seeking out these movies, and as a result, they are devoting their all to ensuring these experiences are well worth it for the audience's sake. And while there are an abundance of devoted filmmakers who champion the cinematic experience itself and movie theaters in particular, it's really director James Cameron who has sought to bring out audiences en masse over the last decade alone with his long-running Avatar franchise. With the first installment in 2009, Cameron revolutionized the visual effects industry, delivering jaw-dropping spectacle and vast world-building combined with blockbuster formulas to deliver an experience unlike any other. With 2022's The Way of Water, Cameron translated the blockbuster into what it used to be: lyrical, epic, and above all, motivated. You see, there really is no other way to experience these Avatar films than inside the movie theater, and that much is apparent. The first time I watched the original Avatar film back in the day, I watched it on DVD from a Blockbuster rental, which shows how old I am. And while I appreciated the spectacle and found it entertaining on the small screen, it wasn't until I saw a re-release of the original film on IMAX 3D that I absolutely found myself floored and motivated and inspired. As was the case as well with 2022's Way of Water in that specific format, I found myself enthralled and captivated by Cameron's vision in every second of that film's runtime, which is uncompromising in scope and all the better for it. And now, at last, Cameron is back within the confines of the world of Pandora, delivering the third installment of the series, Avatar: Fire and Ash, to theaters this weekend. Now, heading into this installment, to say I truly didn't know what to expect is an understatement. One of the things I've loved about every single Avatar movie so far is that, although the marketing gives you a vague idea of the surprises in store throughout the film's runtime, there are always surprises and fun items to uncover as you progress along within these films. So with this in mind, I booked a ticket to the nearest Dolby Cinema 3D showtime I could find, gathered some of my friends, and sat down to experience James Cameron's new spectacle on one of the largest screens within my city. 3 hours and 15 minutes later, I walked out of my auditorium on the verge of tears, stunned beyond belief. I am absolutely astounded by what Fire and Ash has achieved here. I drove home in a stunned silence, and even as I sit here now processing all and contextualizing as I film this review, it's a movie I really continue to mull over at length, really exploring everything Cameron has instilled with this runtime with urgency, and uncovering the layers here little by little. I am not going to sugarcoat it in the slightest. Avatar: Fire and Ash is phenomenal in every sense of the word. I walked out of this film not only astounded, but also strengthened in my love for cinema of every caliber and what the art form itself can achieve within different facets. This film is, more than anything, a reminder of why the cinematic art form itself matters, and why movie theaters and that experience in particular are so important. Sitting in that dark room with a near sold-out crowd reacting to and taking in all that this film has to offer was such a special and unique experience unlike anything I can confidently say I've ever had before. Indeed, Fire and Ash continues to see Cameron leveling up as a filmmaker in terms of craft and purpose, and the end is truly something special to witness and behold. In Avatar Fire and Ash, audiences are once again transported to the planet of Pandora, where Jake Sully and Neytiri are raising their children under the protection of the Water Clan. However, the pursuit of Colonel Miles Quaritch has not stopped, and if anything, the imposing leader stops at nothing in order to bring Sully to justice, while also searching for and reclaiming his lost son Spider. With the threat of the Sky People looming in the balance, Jake will have to make difficult decisions between family and loyalty as he seeks to secure a future for Pandora in the process. You know, Avatar Fire and Ash is a film that has made me contemplate and reflect on a lot of different ideas since viewing it, like all good art does. However, there's one specific element I've mulled over long after viewing that I think exemplifies so much of Fire and Ash's strength as an overall cinematic product, which is that this is a true blockbuster in every sense of the word. As a film critic who watches the majority of movies that release every year, the modern big budget blockbuster sphere is a bleak aspect of film to be sure. Granted, there are definite standouts within the space, but the majority of entries of this caliber are often superficial, derivative, or soulless for lack of a better term. So many of these big budget remakes, sequels, and blockbuster entries don't feel crafted with love, care, or attention in the cinematic art form and the power it can hold, but rather feel machine assembled and carefully manufactured to throw audiences into the thick of the story, yet never allowing the complexities of the narrative to take a focus. However, it's truly a film like Fire and Ash that turns this notion on its head entirely, and also remains one of the finest examples of blockbuster filmmaking we've gotten in the last 10 years alone. Cameron's Avatar movies genuinely harken back to a distant time period for blockbusters, particularly within the early 2000s, where these extended and grandiose epics were saddled not only with intrigue and entertainment value for audiences, but also complex, motivated, and nuanced storytelling crafted with care and attention to detail. Indeed, what Cameron is doing with these Avatar films in terms of blockbuster craft is something I haven't seen done before within the space since Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings saga, which is in crafting big epic spectacle without losing sight of the smaller and more intimate thematic moments that make all the difference throughout. And these moments are surely apparent within the abundance of Fire and Ash's runtime, particularly within the core relationship of Jake and Neytiri. As warriors for their Na'vi clan, both characters feel a loyalty not only to their people, but also to their children and their safety as well. This causes their viewpoints to clash more often than not, as they often don't see eye to eye on the execution and intent of each other's actions or their specific viewpoint on the overall situation. Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana continue to bring so much depth and complexity to their physical and vocal performances here, instilling so much raw pain, vulnerability, and nuance with so little. Every character beat, every dialogue read, and every facial expression is conveyed in such a visceral way, heightened by the motion capture and instilling so much realistic human emotion into the film in the process. This complex characterization is also granted the Sully children this time around, in particular Loak, played by Britton Dalton, and Kiri, played by Sigourney Weaver. As the son of Jake, Loak faces pressure to live up to his father's expectation, causing him to depart on his own particular path even when the stakes seem too prevalent or the risk seems too hopeless. And Kiri, by proximity, also struggles with self-worth and acceptance, although seen through the viewpoint of her intimate connection with nature as explored within the other films, and what it means within the context of the larger war on display here. Cameron has not shied away from displaying the harsh juxtaposition of human-made destruction and nature here, and every single moment is just as staggering, affecting, and heartbreaking as before. When discussing the core thematic struggle within the film itself, it has to be mentioned how great of a job Stephen Lang continues to do as Miles Quaritch within these films, instilling the villain with a right amount of charisma and charm, yet instilling a darker and more hostile side to the individual when the film requires it. However, Quaritch almost takes a backseat within the antagonistic angle of the film here when compared to Varang, the leader of the Fire People, who is played by Una Chaplin. Varang is by far the best antagonist we've received within these Avatar films thus far, not just due in part to the way Chaplin portrays her visceral nuances and insights, but also within her core motives and beliefs herself. Varang is not a kind-hearted or charismatic character. She is cold, unfeeling, and motivated, stopping at nothing to achieve what she wants and using whatever means she needs to in order to accomplish it. In this way, the combined antagonistic partnership of Quaritch and Varang portrays such a wide spectrum of blunt force and emotional depth that you wouldn't really expect from a film of this caliber. The stakes feel so prevalent, the emotions feel so raw, and you genuinely fear for the safety of characters within this film. And the peril and tension is so well accomplished and portrayed within every second of the film's runtime here. Avatar Fire and Ash, as mentioned, is the rare blockbuster to explore core thematic ideas under its action-coded exterior. And within its 3-hour runtime, Cameron and company continue to evolve and explore new concepts that challenge preconceived preconceived notions about this franchise and offer more than an abundance of surprises for audiences to uncover as they progress along. The film not only explores the core concept of legacy and how to forge your own path ahead, but also grapples with the inherent idea of grief and memory, and how to contextualize pain and longing for a distant time with how to make an impactful future for yourself and the people you love. You really don't go into a film like Avatar: Fire and Ash expecting such rich thematic detail and structure, as many audiences are just so conditioned by this modern blockbuster era not to. Yet what Cameron broaches here in terms of thematic complexity never feels shoehorned in or over the top, but rather natural and epic in scope by comparison. And when talking about the scope of this film, we have to talk about the visual style that Cameron continues to impart within these Avatar films, and especially with this one in particular. Fire and Ash is visually stunning in every sense of the word. This is not only a clear and indicative example of visual effects prowess within the modern film industry, but it's also one of those movies where you can't help but take a step back and contemplate how they even managed to do some of the stuff here. Framed with Cameron's careful artistic vision and Russell Carpenter's digital cinematography, the VFX work here is framed with so much careful choice and nuance in every single frame. The lighting and effects work is stunning, whether it's the gorgeous backdrops of Pandora, the sun fading and rising with an eclipse in one of the more dramatic moments of the film, or even the interaction of water with different surfaces and textures and the reaction that occurs from this movement. The amount of sheer detail and care that Cameron and the entire team behind the film have put into this project is nothing short of staggering. As mentioned, the motion capture work within the actors' performances allows these Na'vi to truly connect with audiences and feel real and tangible in every sense of the word. And while some audiences didn't care for Cameron's experimentation with high frame rate cinematography within Way of Water and how jarring such an effect felt, here I ultimately found the high frame rate cinematography to fit perfectly within the confines of the story, never feeling too jarring yet also heightening the more action heavy moments of the film with ease. And the large scale spectacle that Cameron brings to the action sequences of this film is just undeniably impressive. The film's pacing just moves at such a natural clip, enthralling audiences into the thick of the action yet also pulling back on the reins at key ventures throughout to allow the emotional content of the film to connect with audiences. Alas, Avatar: Fire and Ash is undeniably an enthralling, captivating, and stunning film in every sense of the word, but it seems that Cameron himself was unable to avoid some key flaws that hold the film back from attaining core perfection at the end of the day. Ultimately, some characters feel somewhat sidelined within this film, whether it's a painfully underutilized Zoe Saldana as Neytiri, or even the fascinating Water Clan from the last installment who are utilized as background noise for the action-heavy moments within this film. Ultimately, the world that Cameron explores within these films is vast, and there is no conceivable way that he would even be able to explore everything in detail within the confines of a 3-hour runtime. However, the core plot of the film moves in a way where characters almost feel forgotten until their core role pops back in the story again, allowing for moments where audiences might have to suspend their disbelief in order to move from place to place in a natural fashion. And although this might be a small nitpick in comparison, there is one particular moment within the ending scene where a character appears that feels so out of place that I couldn't help but laugh during a serious and prevalent emotional conclusion. Granted, their involvement in the scene contributes nothing to the overall plot, which is why it's easy to gloss over this element, but this, combined with the fact that in comparison to the rest of the film the ending feels slightly rushed, is sure to give audiences more than pause when these moments occur. Outside of these small issues, however, to say I have any overt grievances with Avatar: Fire and Ash is just untrue. This is everything it needs to be and more, and dare I say is the definitive culmination of everything Cameron has tried to achieve with this franchise up to this point. Avatar: Fire and Ash is, in my opinion, the best Avatar film we have gotten thus far, building off of individual strengths from past entries, and fleshing out the world building, action, and storytelling here in a way that not only feels motivated but also necessary. It was almost bittersweet to see an artistically complex and soulful blockbuster like this, as I arrived at an almost disappointing realization that such an entry like this is unfortunately a rarity within the modern box office slate. This is also why it's confusing and also disheartening to see so many critics and influencers dog on the film before its release. While I find myself understanding some of the grievances with the film overall, there has been quite a weird subset of the film criticism landscape that has lauded nothing but negativity on the film because the quote is doing exactly what Way of Water is doing. And while this might be true and it does borrow heavily from Way of Water, is that even necessarily a bad thing? It's not only executing the material here in a far better fashion, but also expanding upon the previous entry and adding depth to portions that truly require it to make character moments and story beats work. Complaining that a film like this is too similar to a previous installment is like complaining that a steak is too tender or that a fire on a cold day is too hot. Like, maybe that's true, but what else could you even possibly want? Alas, it seems that in this crowded and quite cutthroat cinematic landscape, there are still a small minority of people out there who want to see Avatar fail at the box office, both critically and financially. There has been an outpouring of recent discussion about how the Avatar films have, quote, no cultural impact, and therefore don't deserve to be some of the highest grossing films ever made as a result for some reason. But to this, I will raise the point that these Avatar films have indeed already made an impact of their own, which is in remaining shining examples of the strengths of the big budget studio system, and how bombastic blockbuster filmmaking can be used to tell stories that ultimately matter. What people don't realize is that a win for this film is a win for the film industry in general. A win for a blockbuster like this is a win for filmmakers who want to risk it all and go all in with their visions on their projects. And a win for this film is a win for the cinematic experience itself, which is threatened more and more each day. And alas, on that level, it once again has to be stated that if you're going to see Fire and Ash, which I highly suggest you do, seeing it on a premium format like IMAX 3D or Dolby Cinema 3D is a must. You will likely not experience a film like this ever again within the box office until the next Avatar installment releases a few years from now, and to say that the core 3D experience of the film is nothing short of staggering is an understatement. Cameron is a filmmaker who understands that the 3D concept is not used solely to add eye-popping effects to enthrall audiences, but also by proxy to expand the limited space of the frame within the film, and to add further detail to each scene that you otherwise wouldn't get within the confines of 2D. On that level, Avatar Fire and Ash is as well-rounded a film as you could possibly get from this year alone. It's motivated, it's complex, it's thought-provoking, and above all, just a blast. I just really miss when other filmmakers had the earnestness to make something as unabashedly nuanced and artistic like this, and here's hoping that James Cameron will continue to shine a spotlight on the importance of cinema to tell unique stories that truly inspire. Avatar Fire and Ash is nothing short of mesmerizing, and once again transports audiences into the thick of another realm entirely, and really reminds you of why movies are ultimately so special. That's why I'm giving Avatar Fire and Ash a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Avatar Fire and Ash is now playing in theaters. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this review on my channel. If you're new around here and you like the content you see, don't forget to click that subscribe button down below, like the video, and turn on push notifications. Also, leave comment suggestions down below for future video, essay, and review topics. With that being said, until next time, this is Mitchell signing off. Peace out.